Hello, welcome everybody. People are going to wonder what that is, aren't they, when they start seeing the video one day. So our exploration of the feet, but key for me in all the work that I do is how we can be really cost effective on our energy, how we can use our skeleton well. And a lot of the world is, or most of the world is very muscle orientated, and working from your muscles can be quite tiring, particularly if you're using them to stay upright or standing or whatever you might be doing. Because see, muscles, they have tone in them and they work from contraction. And so they often stay in too much tone, and that staying in too much tone also creates more difficulties for us to be in our the physicality of our skeleton. So much of the work that we focus on is how can we use the skeleton so that I don't have to use so much muscles, and then life is going to be a little bit easier. And it's really, I mean, all of this, I think, as we all know, it's a lifelong exploration. You don't ever finally get to know something, you just get to know it differently or embody it deeper, or however you might like to phrase that, really. And the feet are really important, so we're going to look at different aspects of the feet and see where we go, really. I spent all day prepping, and I'm going, shit, I need another 2 hours to do my prep really well. But I'm always like that. I've got pages and pages of stuff, and it's been, for me, a lot of fun just going through different things around the foot and the feet, and just relearning for myself, and I think I've got some real cool things, because really we probably need to spend about 3 or 4 days with the feet rather than just 2 hours. So I've highlighted a number of things and tried to make things quite simple. And I partly do that because I think I'm a bit simple too. I like real simple things. I'm slightly dyslexic, so I've always had a little bit of trouble sometimes with getting things in certain ways. And so having things simple and having pictures of things has really helped me too. And really the most important thing is how I can share with you about just being a bit more present with a bit more ease, and get into a place that gets away from our mind's pattern, because our minds are really full and they take us on all these journeys, and really recognizing the importance of just being in the present moment as quiet as we can. And so I start off pretty much always with lying down, doing some breath work, and also doing some Qigong. And for me, those two kind of set the tone for my work. And also just so that you guys can just have that little bit of time out. It's not just about taking in and learning lots of new information, partly about just kind of learning about letting go, re-embodying letting go. And yeah, okay. So let's lie down, shall we? Nice and easy. You guys have just got up, so. Hi, Nikhil, how are you?
I'm good. Sorry, I ended up with the wrong Zoom link as it happened.
Oh, you're going, that's okay. Welcome. Yeah, welcome to the right room. We've been waiting for you, so I'm glad you came.
Oh, so
yeah,
sorry.
No, I'm only joking. We haven't been waiting for you. So, start off lying down. So, we're all lying down. We're from India, we're from Holland, we're from Vienna, we're from the UK, Germany. I'm here in New Zealand, and we're all connected. I just love this way that we can be connected. And I say this every time, I do feel in touch with you, and I know that you do too, with me and with other people around. I just wanted to say that, really. So find yourself comfy, lying down. Taking a moment or two. I'll try and put you guys all on mute so that we don't hear any background noises. If you need me, you can unmute yourself or wave. Get yourself nice and comfy too. Whether that's within a bolster under your knees or something under your head, particularly say you're not in flexion or extension. And as you're lying down, start by just letting go of your mind's activity. And see if you're able to just quieten down, come into presence here. And a number of different ways that we can do this, a lot of different ways really. Just for a little bit of your own exploration while you are lying down, just have your jaw gently open and your tongue gently resting on the base of your palate. And just see if that tones things down for you or maybe quiets things down for you. So we're looking at breathing in also through your nose and breathing out through your mouth. Might be different from your normal breathing techniques. And come to some sensations in your body. Maybe the sensations in the posterior part of your body that's in contact with the floor. And feeling that weight of your body yielding into the floor. There's a yield. And there's this reciprocal energy that's coming back, which is really a support for you. And that notion of yield and support, part of your yoga tradition, if you know your yoga tradition or you study that. Yield, feel the support. Keeping your mind quiet. And also, please remember there's no right nor wrong. Just an exploration. I think in life we have too many rights and wrongs. So when your mind goes off, it really doesn't matter, because our minds go off a lot. Just keep bringing them back. And take your awareness to the movement of your belly as your diaphragm descends and your belly bulges on an inhale. And the exhale is really just recoiling and letting go. Inhale, pause, exhale, pause. And just for your own curiosity, you feeling your breath movement in terms of some clothing around your belly or somewhere, or you feeling your skin or muscles or your organs. And have your inhale, maybe a count of 4, and the pause of 1, and an exhale of 6. And just see if that also helps to quiet you down, bring you more present. Because for most people, it does help us come into our parasympathetic system, our rest and restore. And observing just where you're feeling sensations, but also are you having some sensations not just towards the ceiling as your belly is rising, but some sensation also towards the floor, and maybe also sideways, because it is a 3-dimensional breath. It's a belly bulging. There's no air that we take down into our belly. It's all in relationship to the diaphragm descending and just changing the shape of your belly, but the volume remains the same. And as you're breathing with your inhalation, your exhalation, also your internal organs are being massaged. So you may want to focus also on organs or areas where your mind's being taken to somewhere inside your cavity of your belly. And really important is, for me, the way that I like to share using the breath is having a real smooth beginning of your breath, a smooth middle, smooth end, a smooth pause, and a smooth exhale, beginning, middle, and end. So not so much about how big my breath can be or how long my breath can be. Maybe focus on how smooth and even of tone that your breath can be throughout the whole of the cycle of your breath. The inhale, pause, exhale, keeping your mind just as quiet as you can, keeping your jaw gently open, tongue gently resting on your palate. And while you're focusing on your belly breath, can you also feel some movement that's happening in your rib cage somewhere? So with your belly breath, not restricting any movement anywhere. Can you see or feel that relationship between your abdominal belly bulging, diaphragm descending, and some movement in your thoracic cage? And shift your attention just for a short while now to the back part of your thoracic cage, the part that's in contact with the floor. And initiate your breath from the posterior part of your rib cage. Inhaling smooth, exhaling smooth. And most of the focus and most of the movement from the back part of your rib cage. And if you've been practicing with me for a while, I'm curious if that's becoming a bit easier for you to initiate your breath from different parts of your body. The inhale, the expansion, some tension feeling maybe more into the floor. And again, the exhales, just a letting go, a recoil. Smooth as you possibly can. Quiet as you possibly can. The back part of your rib cage, the bottom part, the middle, top. And shifting your attention now to the sides of your rib cage, between your arms and the side of your body, and initiate your breath expanding laterally. Inhale, pause, exhale. And the movements that I'm suggesting that you, or the places that you initiate your breath from, are just a natural movement of a breath cycle, not anything different from how your breath would be in a natural breath cycle. Inhaling, lateral, pause, exhale. And now shifting your attention to the front part of your rib cage. Is it easier for you to focus there? Are you more familiar with the movement of your thoracic cage at the front? Smooth as you possibly can. And if your breath is smooth, you certainly extend the length, if you want to, of both your inhale and the pause and the exhale. And if you find a part of your breath cycle that is not so smooth, or you feel that you quickly need to breathe in or quickly need to breathe out, maybe put a little bit more focus on those particular areas. And now your whole thoracic cage is one functioning unit, the front, the back, the sides, the up, the down. Initiating the movement from bones in your thoracic cage. Creating this space so that air can come naturally into your lungs. The world wants us to breathe, and the idea is that we create that space so that air will come into our lungs. Expanding the rib cage on your inhale, pause, and an exhale, just letting go. Keeping your jaw gently open, tongue gently resting on your palate. And then taking your awareness to an area just below your xiphoid process, below your rib cage. And that imaginary ball that there might be there. And as we're breathing in, that ball expands downwards, upwards, forwards, side, forwards, back, left, right, in all three dimensions. incorporating both the belly breath and the thoracic breath, but just with an ease, no particular focus on one area or the other, just allowing the movement of that imaginary ball to expand and stimulate breath wherever it might go. Belly, thoracic. Smooth as you can possibly make it. And now switch your attention to your toes. And start wiggling your toes on your left foot and your right foot, just a little bit. And if you're able to, just your big toes of both left and right foot. And you're able to move your next toe. And a lot of us can't, but we can have a little bit of awareness there, a bit of possibilities. And your middle toe. Your fourth toe, both feet. And your little toe. You might feel that moving your toes all in one functioning unit might help to just have some movement of some toes that you don't have so much dexterity there, so much ability of moving. And keeping the focus of your movement still just in your toes, in your phalanges. And what movement or more movement is required from you to start to engage more of your metatarsal bones in your feet, the next joints or the next bones up from the phalanges from your toes. We'll be going through looking at all the joints in the feet in a minute too. Do you flex and extend? Are you doing a little bit of side bending of your toes? And from your metatarsals to your ankles, you've got your tarsal bones. And what's required in terms of your movement of your toes and metatarsals to actually start engaging some of your tarsal bones. You can also look at moving your ankle inwards and out, up and down, moving your feet. And as you're moving your feet, you're probably also aware that your ankles are moving, and maybe also the bones in your lower legs are moving too. We can't move one joint without another joint moving. Every time we move a joint, something else comes into play in movement. And if we move a number of different joints, again, there's a number of different other joints that will respond. So what kind of movement in your feet and ankles can you do just to explore some movement of your tibia and fibula, the bones in your lower leg? If you twist your feet in, do you feel also those bones maybe having a bit of a spiral action? And that energy that's being created from that movement And the engagement, you feel in something also maybe in your knees. So the focus of attention from your toes, feet, ankles, tibia, fibula, knee. And again, the movements don't have to be a lot, but just enough to keep your attention and to keep some movement of just the bones, gently moving the bones. I sometimes do this in the morning before I get out of bed, and it helps to just disperse fluid in the joints, because during the night our joints hydrate. And if our joints are hydrated, it means that there's a certain tension that's created within the joints because of the fluid, and moving them disperses those fluids. One reason why we wake up in the morning feeling a bit achy. And if you do yoga, don't do vigorous yoga for at least 20 minutes so that your body starts to dehydrate, or the joints start to dehydrate. And from your knees, that movement, feet, ankles, lower legs, knees, something to also start to engage your femur, and you're probably even feeling your hips moving a little bit now too. Maybe lift one hip up and one down, gentle movement. Toes, all the way to your hips, just gentle, easeful, kind. I like working with kindness. And because you're starting to move your hips or being aware of that, you feel your pelvic girdle moving, one side and the other side. It's amazing how little we can do, but how big the effect can be. I mean, even as I'm sitting here talking, I'm doing the movements as well, and it feels quite freeing. I'm not putting strain on the joints. No big muscular movements. And your sacrum, your lumbar spine, what do you need to do to now engage your lumbar spine also in this gentle movement of awareness? Lower spine, mid spine, and then part of the spine that you can feel that is attached also to your ribs. So you might be moving your lumbar, and then if you come up a bit more, then you're in your thoracic spine. And moving your ribs. Any which way that kind of feels good in terms of just some engagement, some awareness. And not just the ribs at the back, the sides, front, incorporating maybe also some movement of your sternum. Keeping your toes going, keeping your ankles going, keeping that movement throughout the whole of the skeleton that we've been working on, all the way to your shoulders as well. So if you move your shoulders or moving your scapula on your ribs, keeping your toes going, your knees going, your hips going, and your arms, and your head, and your hands. And any part of your body that you feel maybe you've not had contact with. Fingers. And starting to move a bit more so the movements become a lot bigger, more engaging. And slowly come to standing up. And we'll do a little bit of Qigong together as well. And I think some of you are also new to this class and new to doing the Qigong. And I do pretty much say every time that if there was only a few things that I could do with my own yoga practice, that it would be these 3 Gong exercises. And for those that have been exploring this with me before, I'm hoping that also for you, you're just becoming a bit more familiar, a bit deeper with the practice. So come to standing and have your feet kind of parallel and about a fist width apart. This really looks at taking the whole of my body weight coming down my hips, coming down my legs. We're going to do a bit more of this exploring as well. So I'm not going to spend so much time going back and forth, but spend a little bit of time going back and forth and just feeling how your fascia starts to kick in and prevent you falling forward, prevent you falling backwards. Just for a moment, and then just come into a place where it feels neither forward nor back, a little bit left and right. Just very gently left and right. And then come to a place that feels now for you neither forward nor back, nor left nor right. And while you're standing there, feeling the sensation of touch of your feet on the floor. And just be curious about where the main contact of touch is for you. Don't forget, there's no right nor wrong. So if you come to your calcaneus, your heel bone, where do you feel the weight? Bearing in mind that we're going to sway a little bit, because standing upright is not a fixed thing. But is there a place on your heels? Or are you more on the front of your feet? Is that more of your stance, so that you're kind of in a sense ready to keep moving forwards? Or are you a bit more on the sides of your feet? Do you favor one side a little bit? And just remember your experience now, because we'll explore these in different ways as the evening or the morning goes on for you. Have your head in a position so it's neither inflection or extension. Having your arms gently dangling by your sides, with a little bit of space, and your palms facing your thighs and your fingers gently pointing towards the floor. And the first Qigong that we're going to do is called Lift in the Sky. And if you're familiar, please go ahead and do it. And if you're not, please just watch me while I do it twice, because it will be helpful for you. Sorry with my light behind. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to bend my head down, just my head. My arms are extended. My palms are facing the floor. My fingers pointing towards each other. My fingers open. And on an inhale, I'm lifting my arms up, looking through my fingers. And I'll just bend down so you can see what my hands do when they're extended. And when they're extended, I pause with my breath. I push up, lifting the sky. And then I exhale, my arms come down and my head comes down. so that it comes back to that neutral place. So if I'm standing, but I'm kneeling, so you can see there's an inhale coming up, looking through my fingers. I pause with my breath, push up, exhale. And there's an inhale, your nose, exhale through your mouth. So it's fairly straightforward. We're not going to change this particular movement for this particular one. Inhale coming up, looking through your fingers. Looking up through your fingers still, that pointing or palms are facing the ceiling. Pause on the breath. Lift in the sky, exhaling. So after you've got that a little bit, in terms of, oh yeah, I understand the movement, just allow now your arms to kind of feel like they're floating up in water. So you take the effort away from the movement. So the form is important, but not so important when you just come more in contact with the energy component of this, because there's lots of different ways that you can do any movement. Inhaling through your nose, exhaling through your mouth. And then when your arms are now next by your sides, come back to standing again and just see what that's like now with your stance. Come back again to the soles of your feet, remembering, if you can, where there was an emphasis of contact with you on the floor, where there was more sensations. Is it the same? Has it changed? Quieten down in your musculature. So having your feet soft and having your ankles soft and your knees and your hips, but using the length, the long bones in your legs, your femur and tibia and fibula, to keep you upright. And the same with your spine. If you can have the weight of your head coming down the front of your spine and having our arms just dangling to the side, you can take the unnecessary effort out of standing. And then the next one that we're going to do is called Carrying the Moon. It's quite similar, and I'll show you if you're not familiar, otherwise please go ahead. I'm going to bend over just a little bit more. And on an inhale, with my palms cupped and facing my knees, and then on an inhale, I'm bringing my arms up. I'll do that kneeling again so you can see, because that light behind. So on an inhale, I'm coming up, like this, and I'm carrying the moon. And then an exhale coming down. I'll show you what it looks like on the side of my upper body. So I'm bending forwards a bit more, palms are cupped, I'm inhaling, coming up, pause with my breath, and then exhale coming down. So similar quality, similar movement. Bending forwards, palms cupped, inhale coming up, pause with your breath, exhale. This light's a bit funny. It's okay. Inhaling through your nose, pausing with your breath, exhaling through your mouth. And when again you've got that form, then just allow yourselves to feel like you're floating in water. So you take the effort out of the movement. Keeping your feet about fist width apart, parallel. And it does sometimes take a while just to get into the movement. So if you're new to this, just be a little bit patient with the movement. Inhaling, coming up. Exhaling, coming down. And then maybe just 1 or 2 more times, and then come back to your arms just by your sides. Feeling the connection of your feet on the floor. And being just as quiet as you can in your mind, just standing here. In Qigong, they call it the Qigong state of mind, just being quiet, present. And normally we spend a bit longer focusing on all the joints in the body and looking at how we can be in a certain alignment with ease. And the last one that we're going to do now is called Beautiful Butterflies Dancing in Front of Flowers. And I'll show you a couple of times. So I'm bending over quite a bit more this time. And then my arms come up, with my head comes up. There's a pause in my breath. A pause in the breath, there's a transition where my head comes down, my arms come down, and the exhale coming down. I'll show you sideways. That light behind's a bit weird, isn't it? Don't know that. I think that might be a tiny bit better. I don't know. Okay, so I'll show you what it's like side on. I'm bending over quite a bit more forwards. Inhaling, coming up. My palms are facing the ceiling. I'm looking at the ceiling. At the pause of the breath, there's a transition of my head and my arms. My palms face down now. Exhale, coming down. Bending forwards. Inhale, coming up. Beautiful butterflies. Dancing in front of flowers. Palms facing the ceiling, looking up at the ceiling. Transition. Exhale, down. Inhaling, coming up. Pause. Exhale, down. And again, just a few more rounds, just taking the effort out of the movement. So imagine your arms are just floating up in water. Or imagine just you're a beautiful butterfly, which is so feather light. Seems to be so little structure there in a butterfly. And then when your arms are next by your sides, come back to just standing. Being quiet, bit of space. And placing your hands just below your belly button, about 2 to 3 inches below your belly. And smile from your heart, smile from your heart. And then rubbing the hands together, dabbing our eyes, massage your head, little shake of arms and legs, walk around the room. And then let's come back. So, cool. Anybody want to make any comments? I'm happy to unmute you. Unmute yourself if you want to say anything. How is that for people that have been doing this for a while? I'll see if I can unmute you all, probably. Okay, you're all unmuted. How's that been for you guys? If you want to be mute yourself, some of you are not. Any comments? No comments?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, gone. Share screen. Oh yeah, did you see this one? Thumbs up if you can see the screen. Yeah, good. Pretty cool, eh?
Yes.
That's we have that inside of us. So we're going to look at embodying the feet. So we're going to look at the bones, the ligaments. Probably not so much the arches today. The joints. We're going to look at different types of joints in the feet. So at the standing, which is what we've done already, we're going to look at walking, and we're going to just start to get more familiar with the feet as by also massaging them as well. So come up with a few of these little diagrams. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the anatomy, but just enough for us to be able to kind of feel our way around. So you can, I don't know if you can still also see this as well, the foot, the skeleton of the foot. So this is the right foot. This one here is the right foot. And this one is seen from above, and this is one seen from below. This is your calcaneus here, bone. You can see it on this side as well.
We can't actually see what you're looking at there.
Oh, can't you? Thanks for letting me know that. Let me stop doing that. It's being paused in your shared window to the front. Don't understand what that says. Hold on just a second. Let me see if this is. How about that? No?
We can see you, but you're still small because you're sharing your screen, so we can't see the model.
Cool. Okay, yeah, I want you to see the screen just more than me, just me a little bit small at the moment. So I'll show you the skeleton foot in a while. So let's start off at the toes here. So these are the phalanges, the distal phalanges, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then you have your
well, we still see the first page, I think, of your presentation. So we don't see the foot.
Okay. Let me stop the share. And that's stopped share, isn't it? Yeah. And let me try again.
Yeah.
And tell me if that's changed.
Ah, better.
Yeah, that is.
So you had no idea what I was talking about, did you?
Thank you, Paul.
Okay, how about that? That's even better, isn't it? Okay. So your toes here. Oh, look, we got this little blue marker. That's even better. The distal phalanges, the medial phalanges. We're going to look at these. You've got the tarsal metatarsals here. You've got these cuneiform bones. We're going to look at these in a bit more detail. If you are familiar with this, you'll recognize the different joints. We've got a cuboid bone here, 3 cuneiform bones, the navicular joint, the talus, and the calcaneus here. So it's quite difficult for me to show you because it's better if we were in the same room. But if you can grab hold of your foot so that it's like resting across your leg or something, so it's dangling a little bit. And start just by feeling and moving the toes of your little foot. The distal phalange, the medial one, the proximal one. So if you look at these as while you're massaging your toes, then you can do a little gentle pull, opening up the joint, each joint. And as you're doing that, you can see that there's 3 bones here in your little toe, as there is with the other 4 toes, but your big toe only has 2 bones. And as you're also massaging around your toes, feeling the shape, feeling ease of movement or non-ease of movement, And then come to your next toe, feeling the toe itself. And the movements you might want to do would be kind of up and down. You might want to gently pull, opening the space, and maybe also introducing a little bit of rotation movement as well. So the up and down is useful, and the rotation is useful because that's basically how these synovial joints move. And I'll talk about that a bit more in a minute. So just exploring here, your foot, toes here.
Very interesting.
In between the toes, and come to your middle toe. The feet are amazing. They are totally amazing. So I just want you to become a bit more familiar with them. It's difficult for me to show you, but yeah, I can show you best with this diagram. See if you can isolate also the different joints. The most distal one, the medial one, the most proximal one. And are there parts of your foot that are feeling maybe a bit tight, or you don't have much movement there? Having some massages of your feet is just a nice thing to do. You'll probably feel quite refreshed in your feet after the session today. And then your next toe, often the longest toe, feeling the joint to the front. See if you can feel the 3 joints of your phalanges. And then also your big toe too. It's got 2 joints. Is there some movement that you can, and to do the movements you might want to hold this joint here with one hand and hold this joint with another hand. And look at that movement, maybe up and down, sliding movement, and maybe some rotation movement. So just taking your time exploring, and then come up to the metatarsals here. I don't know why this drawing doesn't say the metatarsals, but these metatarsal joints. Large one here with your big toe, the gap in between. Also going to do a little bit of massage on some acupuncture points in a minute as well. So this is becoming, for now, for you familiar with the actual bones in the joints, sorry, bones in the foot, and the second toe. Some of them are quite difficult to feel. You know, you might want to even push from underneath so that you can help to expose where that joint is, and can you hold the joint of the phalange and then move the joint of the metatarsals. The best way for us to move when we move any joint is to move both joints, sorry, both bones, the ones at proximal and distal, rather than just moving one joint, or sorry, it's one bone. So as you're massaging or moving it, look at maybe moving both the bones that you're holding, your middle toe as well, if you've not already gone there. Also your next toe. And then lastly, of the metatarsals here, the small one here, it's got this little bump that comes out here as well. You'll probably feel that too. Maybe hold this bone and move this bone. And these two bones here, of the 4th and 5th metatarsal, they have a shared relationship here with the cuboid bone. They articulate with the cuboid bone here. And you might want to come up to the top of your metatarsal here and see if you can feel the cuboid bone. And then if you come to feeling this area here. So this whole area here that I'm just drawing around there, these are your tarsal bones.
Mm.
Your cuboid here, these are the 3 cuneiform bones. So your big toe articulates with the first cuneiform bone, the medial one. The second toe articulates with the intermediate cuneiform bone, and your middle toe articulates with the lateral one. And the 3 cuneiform bones, and that gets a little bit more tricky to move because there's just a lot of tension in your foot. And the other thing is that these joints here, the tarsal joints, they don't move independently. They don't have a musculature that spans those joints that allows you to move the joints. They have some musculature. Actually, the talus bone here doesn't have any muscles. I'll talk a little bit about that. But the muscles that span these aren't enough for us to be able to stimulate the movement from there. So the way that you move your cuneiform bones is by moving another joint in your foot, either in your dorsiflexion of walking or if you do some plantar flexion movement. So the cuneiform bones here articulate here with the navicular bone. And the navicular bone articulates with the talus. And here's your calcaneus. So you might even want to hold your heel bone and see if you can move it around in relationship to your talus as well. Okay.
Tarsals.
How can I do it with this?
It's in the metatarsals.
So I just wanted to show you these ones as well because it kind of looks a bit more bony. But one of the things that I'd like to highlight for you is if you can see the shape here of this phalange of the big toe, you can see that that shape there is concave. It's like this. And the joint above it is convex. So they actually slide like this. There's actually not a hinge joint in the body because we don't have a classic hinge joint anywhere in the body. More sliding and more rotational movement. And then if you look at the distal end of that phalange, it has that shape as well, and the other one has that, this has this concave and convex shape. So all of these joints pretty much, actually these aren't quite classic synovial joints, but pretty much all the joints that you have in the foot are synovial joints, so they have fluid around them to protect them as well. And you can see these complexities here of articulations. Here's a different diagram. David Gorman's book, The Body Movable. This book was actually, back in the 80s, it was all hand-drawn and handwritten, quite incredible. And he's allowed me to use them in my manuals and stuff, which is quite cool. Okay, so I'm just going to take you to the acupuncture points on the feet, because they're also quite useful. And a few of them that we'll just focus on more so just today is in between the web of your big toe and your next toe. You've got the point here that's called 3. It's liver 3. It's an acupuncture point for the liver. So you might want to just massage in between there. I don't know if you can see it on my little diagram, on my little foot here. I'll try and point to it. It's just in this web here. Really good point for pain, good point for getting chi energy to move around the body. Feels a bit tender maybe, feels tender on me. And you can also massage the line of that meridian that goes from the nail point of your big toe, the lateral nail point coming up your foot to that web and just up towards your ankle. So a lot of people would do this in a massage or shiatsu, quite an important point. On the lateral side of your foot here, number 3, this is your spleen point. So the spleen rules over the muscles in the bodies and rules over blood. The emotions associated to the spleen is sympathy. So that's just on the proximal side of your big bone on your toe, or where you might have a bunion. We'll talk a little bit about bunions, so remind me. So you can come from the outside of the nail point of your toe, coming along the side, and then taking that line of energy coming up your foot to about here. You don't have to be exactly right, but you'll be stimulating some of that movement. Here, if you come down from your ankle and you feel this bone here, it's the navicular bone. You come to a kidney point, and if you follow that kidney point around here, and you come into the middle of your foot, between your toes here, there's a little web, is the entry point of the kidney point, of the kidneys. Really good for resuscitation. So when my wife was feeling a bit faint, I was needling those points bilaterally on her feet. Maybe I should sit on a chair so I can show you. I had my feet pedicured just for today. Now I'm lying. But I do spend a lot of time walking bare feet, and it's so you get quite grubby feet, so I soak them for a long time. So I don't know if you can see, but just here, really good point. I'll tell you the other really good point for resuscitation at the same time, if you ever need to, is pressing also here quite strongly with your finger. It's quite painful. So again, I was needling that acupuncture point as well. Really good. And so if my wife was feeling a bit faintish, she would do that for herself as well, which was really helpful. And just massaging like you've been doing, you massaged in between these points, so you'd be working on the stomach, gallbladder and the bladder. But I just wanted to share that little bit with you. So, and there's lots of nerve endings in your feet. There's lots of zones in the feet that people also work with. So that's just a tiny little intro. Okay. So we got 26 bones in each foot. That's 52 altogether. That's 25% of all the bones in our body are in our feet. We've got 4 arches. I've been studying with Amy Matthews, and she talks about 4 arches instead of 3. We won't have time to go through those this time. And all the synovial joints are 3-dimensional. They have 3-dimensional capabilities of moving, and they all have contours. They all have shapes. And no bone is flat. There always is some roundness to them or some curve to them. And they never move just on one plane. So they're multi-dimensional. And they will all involve some sort of sliding. And there's not really a hinge joint in the body. Even the knee joint's not a hinge joint. So one of the things that we're doing is we're looking at joint space. We're looking at the balance between the 2 surfaces, to the bones of one bone and another bone where they meet. And if there's an equal movement and an equalness of tension, then there's going to be less wear and tear on a joint. And this will become a little bit more apparent just as we go on as well. So a balanced joint space equals the force traveling through the joints are evenly distributed over the maximum area of the articular surface of the bone. So the more that the force is traveling through a joint, the more they can be evenly distributed. So instead of, like, if you're pushing your weight here, there's going to be some even distribution. But if I change that so that it's more to the side here, then that's going to start to create more wear and tear in a particular joint. So again, we're looking at how we can move those well. So the joint movement. So if you look at this, is kind of a classic kind of drawing of the two bones, basically. So here you see this shape. You've got the concave and the convex shape.
Oh yeah.
You've got the cartilage which surrounds the joint, which protects it. The synovial fluid here. You've got the bone and the bone marrow. And then you've got the ligaments that span. And we've often spoken about the ligaments. The ligaments are really, they keep the joint in the place that the joints are designed to be. They don't have really contractible power. There's a certain degree of movement that they have based on our emotions, based on the liver energy, because the liver rules over the ligaments, and environmental and emotional situations. So if you keep stretching a ligament, that ligament can stay stretched. So when it comes back to being relaxed, it still can maintain some of its stretchness. So for instance, if you were to spend a lot of time standing on one foot so that you put a lean on one side, and what happens is instead of your spine being like this, you're leaning over so that your vertebra on one side here, your ligaments are being stretched. And if you stand like that over a period of time, when you come back to standing normal, this side has stayed stretched and you get a bulge of your disc coming through. So that's a sense of having that integrity of your spine, which we work on all the time in the bone yoga, is really supporting that nature of having the forces being really well evenly distributed over a joint rather than being to one side, which puts a lot of strain both on the integrity of the joint itself, but also on the ligaments too. So it's good to be moving both joints, or both bones, as I've just said, too. So here's the talus bone here. So this is going to be quite important with our
hidden behind the
work
tibia.
that we're going to do. You have the subtalar joint. It works three-dimensional. This doesn't have any musculature. What it does do is it distributes and organizes the weight coming down from the tibia down into the talus, into the calcaneus, and then it comes down the feet here. I don't think I've got a diagram of that afterwards, so I need to show you. I can show you here. So we're going to look at walking. And classic, first of all, we're going to do a little bit of walking just to see how you do walk. But what I will, in fact, let's do that now. Pretend you haven't seen that diagram, okay? And let's stand up and let's just walk around the room a bit. And I'll also talk you through a little bit of walking as well. So the first thing before we start to walk is just kind of walk forwards and back just a little bit. Just walk forwards and back. Forward and back. And in a second, I'm going to say stop. And you're basically going to stop. You're not allowed to readjust yourself. So just come to standing and stop. Okay. So now you're not allowed to readjust yourself for a few minutes unless you get really uncomfortable. So whatever position you're in now, just see what that's doing to your body. See what's happening with your feet in contact with the floor. Again, coming back to, so don't picking up how to move, unless you really have to, feeling where you have the main contact. And is there some strain in your body somewhere? Is it, do you have some strain in your feet? Or you feel you might be feeling really smooth and comfortable? Is there some tension that may be going up your leg, into your buttock? Maybe some tension even going higher up into your head. Taking into consideration also that your feet underpin every pattern in our body, in your body. Every time you make a step, that has a vibrational imprint, communication with everything else. And then just start walking around the room. We're doing it quite slowly. So just allowing one foot to come down onto the floor heel first, and just seeing whereabouts or how you walk. Or do you do your heel first, or you do your toes first? So please try and just be real natural in your own way that you would normally walk, and seeing where you have your first contact with the floor with your heel, the next contact, and the next contact. And then just come back to standing for a moment. And have your feet kind of parallel so that you can be in a kind of okay position, not in one that might cause a little bit of discomfort as before. And again, just sense, do you lean more on your toes, or just naturally do you lean back a bit? Or are you one of these people that likes to, like a horse would do when they relax one of their legs and they bend their leg? Or would you prefer to have your legs splayed open or a bit more internal? Just be kind of real about how you are in that position. And let's come back to now looking at this diagram. Now you can see the diagram. The feet are amazing. You know, the way that the feet work in terms of all the joints communicating together, the arches of the feet are designed to take a lot of the, weight of our whole body. So, you know, if you're 5 stone or 6 stone or 10 stone, it's an enormous amount of weight above your feet. And it's incredible that they can do what they do because they're quite small in relationship to our whole body. Amazing piece of architecture. What happens, and if you look on this side here, you have your heel foot and your ankle foot. And your heel foot is this part of your foot here. And what I will do is I'll stop that share a minute so that I can also show you on here too. So it's quite difficult doing this on the screen, I can tell you. I need 3 hands really. So if you look at this, gets kind of separated here into 2 quite distinct parts of your feet. Did you know that? That this was the last 2 toes that have a shared body here with a navicular, very different from these 3 toes there. I'll go back to the diagram because it's quite a good diagram. I can show you one here. Right. Oh no, what's going on? Can you see that? Oh, yeah. Okay, can you see that? So here, this bit here. So what happens is that there's weight that comes down from your upper body, and you place that, your foot on the floor, your heel, and it goes from your tibia to your talus. And your talus is designed to distribute the forces and the weight coming from your upper body. And from your talus, it goes to your calcaneus. From your calcaneus, it goes to your cuboid. Sorry, I called this navicular, your cuboid bone. And from your cuboid bone, it goes to the 4th and 5th metatarsal. And then that's your heel foot. And then your ankle foot starts off in your 1st and 2nd toes, the metatarsals, which is now your inner foot, coming up to your cuneiform bones to the navicular bone to your talus, and the talus, that energy then comes back to the tibia and or fibula. So that's that walk in action. And it kind of happens in a spiral when your heel goes on the floor, the outside of your foot spirals around to the front, to the ankle foot, that then your toes then have this pushing off, which then sends that energy up through, I'm pointing to the screen and you can't see me pointing, up through the metatarsals here, coming up the cuboids, navicular, talus, and back up the foot again. I wonder if I can show you on here. Let's have another go. Okay. So I walk, my heel hits the floor. That then, and that force of that energy that's coming down my tibia, the talus, down into the calcaneus to the navicular, down these toes, curling around and coming back up. So we probably need to try this. It's very difficult for me to show you that on the screen. Do I want to show you something else? No. Should we try that standing up? Yeah. Seeing what that's like. So what you might want to do is just do a step. So you step with your heel, side of your foot, your heel toe, your ankle. And you get that kind of movement that, and you can exaggerate it a little bit to start off with, but there's three kind of distinct places: your heel, the side of your foot, in front of your foot toes, and then it gets pushed off, and then your other foot comes into play. So this is, and it might feel a bit funny, and I know that we're exaggerating that movement. And just see how that feels as you're walking. If you want to look at changing the arches of your feet, if you feel like you have flat feet and you want bigger arches, you actually don't need to do that. You just need to allow your foot to work really well, and your arches will start to form in a relaxed and an easeful way around your walking, your easeful walking. And if you have flat feet, so what we're looking at now is our hip, the weight of our body, heel contacting the floor. That energy then gets distributed to the side of your foot, and not medially. So if I'm doing a walk, and you might want to look at my feet, you can see them, if I'm doing a walk that does this, you can see what happens to my foot. See that? And I've got some bunions on my feet. Part of the bunions is, for me, is hereditary. My father had a bunion thing. My daughter's got a bit of a bunion. But if what happens is every time, if I do the walk so that my foot leans over like this, there's too much pressure happening here, and you get a cartilage growing. Is it called cartilage? Growing around there, and it develops into it starts to ossify and turns into bone, and you get a bunion. That's how a bunion forms. Mainly, you can see how my foot's going over. I don't have a lot of. I'm going to work much more on my feet. This is giving me really good encouragement to walk on my feet. Did you see what I was doing and how that was changing? And you also don't want to be out on your foot either. You might just want to try that to see what it's like if you come internal, because you can see also what happens with your knees and your hips. So you can see also that you're kind of losing your energy coming inwards. And then if you go more on the outsides of your feet, you can see that your energy is kind of splaying outwards as well. Does that make sense? And if you, so the idea is that there's an even distribution with our feet, but the important place of contact, if you're particularly standing in a yoga pose, if you were doing one of these poses, you don't want your foot to be tilted inwards, but you still want that energy coming down your foot, feeling that heel-toe arrangement rather than it collapsing inwards. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So come back again just to doing a little bit of walking and doing that heel. Yeah. Heel, foot, ankle, foot pattern. So if you must now just come on a chair also, or a place where you can just sit down. And if you just have your knee kind of at right angles as well, and pushing down into your foot from above, and seeing just where that energy goes, whether you feel it goes inwards, whether you feel it goes outwards, and see if you can just maintain a really good contact between pushing down on your knee, going down into your calcaneus, heel toe, ankle toe, and see what it's like then if you actually invert your knee a little bit so that it becomes the opposite, which is not very good for stability. Does that make sense as well? And maybe try it also with your other leg. So how we distribute our weight coming from our upper body, going down our leg, going down into our foot is really important for walking, and for walking really well, and for everything else above it. So if something's not going right in your foot, there will be some ramifications of that somewhere else in your body. And that's why you get a knee problem or a hip problem often, or a lower back problem. So a lot of people, if someone comes in and say, I've got a knee problem, the first place they look is their feet. Someone comes in and they've got a hip problem, the first place they might look would be their feet. And obviously, it could be coming from lots of different places as well, but feet are really very important. Does anyone have any questions at the moment?
Yes, I have.
Yes.
I do have a question. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you? What about the hallux? Because I think the hallux,
Yes.
hallux, I don't know the English word, it's Latin, hallux, no? Do you know what I mean?
Can you describe what you're saying?
It's if the big toe
Yes.
gets this oversized ankle joint, hallux vulgaris.
Okay. I don't really know
I
enough.
have it. Can show you.
Show me. Thank
This
you.
one. This. Can you see? So this one.
I can't see it quite.
If it's like this.
On your big toe? On the outside?
Yes. That's the joint.
Yes.
It's arthrose.
Yeah.
Arthrose.
Yeah. That's on your big toe?
Yes.
Yes. That's
and it hurts. And I think it comes from going inwards.
Yes, it does. I think that's what I was trying to say, that's that bunion that happens, that if your foot does internally rotate like this, that there is a build up of cartilage over a period of time, and that cartilage starts to solidify and comes into bone. And so it's either a hereditary thing, or it's a because we're not walking well, we're not doing the heel toe walk. Does that make sense?
Mm.
So we're not doing heel foot, ankle foot. We're doing more straight to going inversion, and that starts to. So as you keep leaning in like this, it starts to build up that bone tissue. So it's probably a bit of both. I think they can change a wee bit, and I think we can stop them getting a little bit worse. But if they've calcified, I think you can still improve your feet. So a lot of people can have that when their toes actually start to bend this way as well. And you can, what can happen is that can start to, but that bunion can put pressure on the other toes, and all the other toes start to form, and they start to flare outward as well. So it's tricky. I think sometimes people just, my father had to have an operation on that bunion. I think it depends on how developed that is as well. But this could change things for you, but it takes a while to keep changing a walking pattern, because, you know, if you're 30, 40, 50, 60 years old, you've been walking in a certain pattern for a very long time.
Yeah.
But can change.
Do you have a special exercise for it?
This is the special exercise, this way of walking as well. What also happens is, and the talus is quite an important joint here as well. So if you look at the shape of the foot, there's this curve to the foot. And the talus joint here is really important joint, just to keep the weight and distribution evenly through the foot. But you also have, and I actually have a diagram of it, I think. Let me show you. Okay. So one thing that you might want to look at is the calcaneo-navicular ligament here, which is, if you come up your side of your foot, you feel that there's this bump on the side of your foot, and there's a ligament that attaches to both of those, to your calcaneus and your navicular, and you might want to just do some massaging and pressing of that. Maybe a little bit of lengthening on it, but that's quite an important ligament for the integrity of keeping your foot upright as well. Because a lot of that bunion is being formed by the instep here collapsing as well.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing that happens is that if it collapses and you get this downward motion here, then this arch then flattens. So you get the arch flattens like this. And there's some fascia that goes from your heel all the way to these little knobbly bits on the end here of your metatarsals, that if that foot comes down, like, I wish I had two things to do here. That foot comes down, what happens is that fascia here gets extended that way and it gets extended that way.
Mm.
So it's actually being lengthened, and it can cause quite a bit of issues as well. So when you then wake up in the morning and you put your foot down because you've got that inflammation, it can be quite painful. So if you, let me see if I can stop that sharing. So this is also a useful thing for you to do as well.
Yeah.
Is sitting on a chair so that your foot is able to just flop down and relax. And so we're looking at it coming from the calcaneus to here and just massaging that area. Not necessarily pulling it, because the pulling of it is the thing that has caused the problem. Because that arch is flattened out, that fascia is extended this way. So you might want to just massage it, even just kind of encouraging it to be shortened, but just doing some pressure along the whole of the flat of the foot will help to relieve some of that tension as well. And that ligament that spans that joint. So you might want to just massage that now, because there's, massaging the feet is one of the nicest things that we can do for ourselves as well. Seeing how tight it is. And also you'll find that you might find some fascia in your foot that feels a little bit more tender, and you might just want to work at that a little bit too. But be mindful that you don't want to cause any aggravation if it's too inflamed. Acupuncture is really good, helping to release some of that held energy as well. But I've been studying with Amy Matthews, and she talks about the arches of the foot. And if someone, she says it doesn't matter if someone's got a flat foot, if their weight is still evenly distributed when they're doing their walking action and when they're standing, that the flat foot's not a problem. Because you can have someone with a high arch foot that looks really like a healthy foot, but if their weight still isn't being distributed, they're still going to, certainly over a period of time, going to cause some issues with their feet too. The idea of maybe wearing something in your foot to keep your arches up is not really a problem, and sometimes it's just really useful just to help someone maintain a shape if they're standing a lot. The best thing is to walk barefoot on rough ground, on grass, and going for a walk barefoot. It's the best thing for feet. There's not a shoe that's existed in the world that's helpful for anyone really. Shoes aren't good for people. The other thing that you might want to do is change your footwear a lot. Don't wear the same things. I think they call it flip-flop ritus or something like that, because when you come out of your shoes and you go into your flip-flops, they call them jandals here in New Zealand. I don't know why, it's a silly name. And basically, so you've been walking around with a shoe that has an arch, and then you go into your flip-flops, and basically it goes like this, and then you have aching feet. That's one reason why you have that, because your arch has come down. But rather than lifting up your arch and using your muscles to maybe create even more imbalances, possibly using this walking action is the best way to encourage the clear energy through your foot by using the skeleton in your foot well, rather than trying to change the musculature. Changing the musculature, you're going to be your old habit patterns into it, and it might not work quite as well. Is that helpful? Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Mm.
So let's come back to standing for a little while again. How's everyone doing? Anyone else questions? It's a bit so just spend a moment just standing, just kind of any old how that you would stand. And then spend just a little time leaning on your toes, so that you're leaning your weight forwards. And feeling what that also feels like in your body, and how your body's responding to that. And also just coming back, leaning on your heels. And then just allowing yourselves to come to your heels, the sides of your feet, toes, balls of your feet, and just allowing yourself to rock back. Creating that movement in your foot, that spiral movement coming down from your calcaneus, going down your navicular to your fourth and fifth metatarsals, coming back up your hillside, so that you just get that kind of rolling action. And then just come back to standing upright and having a sense of the weight of your body being distributed as evenly as possible down into your calcaneus, but the energy a little bit more going to the outsides of your feet, so that you're not coming inwards. But just a little tone of being more on the outside, ready for that kind of, if you were to walk forwards. And just see if that changes things for you. Not just in your feet, but in your knees or in your hips or your lower back. And then lift up your arches and just see what that feels like for you. If you lift up your arches, you can feel everything just tightening up, because they have to, because you're pulling up, because you're using your joints on either side, because it's hard to just lift up your tarsals on their own because of the musculature that doesn't span the joints that allows you to move them, and then soften them. And then again, just come back into that slightly rolling motion of heels, outside of your feet, inside of your feet, coming back up. And then also just start, I like to, quite a lot, I have practiced quite a lot just moving forwards, but without going forwards. So I'm just rocking back and forth from one foot to the other. And so instead of me actually propelling myself forward, just also allowing myself to just gently come back. But my foot that's in front, looking at heel, come back ankle, And then maybe also swapping legs over as well. And then let's just come back to just standing again for a moment. And I'll just take you through just coming back to sensation of your feet. Sensation of your feet on the floor. So soften your knees a little bit, but not too bent. See if you can just have a really good even feeling and sensation. Feet on the floor. And if you have a pattern of slightly inverted, then maybe just be mindful that you don't go inwards too much. And softening your ankles as well, using the tibia and fibula to keep you upright, softening your knees, softening your femur, softening all of your pelvic girdle, but using your bones and your skeleton well, so that you're not either on your toes or coming back. Onto your heels, so there's an even sensation. And also the distribution of weight of your torso and your head. And really important also is just that gentle movement or possibility of movement of your skull sitting on your atlas as well. That affects the way that we stand too. And just while you're standing here, can you let go of anything else, any other unnecessary tensions? And then let's just come down to kneeling for a moment. And I'll show you another movement that I do that opens up the tarsal joints as well. So if you come to kneeling down, so basically if I'm kneeling down, my foot's like this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a little bit of tension, and I'm going to open up the joints at the front just a little bit. And the way that I like to do that is that first of all I just create a little bit of engagement with my fingers in the floor, so that I can feel just a relationship of engagement, gentle, coming up to my shoulders. And I'm going to do a couple of different movements. One is that I'm going to just slightly curl, and at the same time as I'm curling, I'm going to lift the knee off the floor. The curling just keeps me a little bit more balanced. This just gives me this nice sensation of engagement. And I'm lifting up my knee, which is opening up the bones on the top part of my foot, but just gently, and then releasing that back down again. Does that make sense? It's a movement that I do also when I do body work, just to open up the joints to help free tensions in the joints. And then swapping sides again. If it's a bit painful, then please don't do this. But this kind of feels nice to help to open up the joint. It's an unusual motion to make because it's a plantar flexion, and the movement that your foot is more used to doing is a dorsiflexion when you walk. So it's just doing the opposite of a walking action, and sometimes doing the opposite is quite useful as well. How's that? Any questions? we just lie down for a few minutes together and just do a Shavasana so we can kind of go. And then afterwards, if you want to chat a bit more, you're free to do that too. So there's a lot to take in with the feet because it's so complex, and I've tried to do it in a quite a simple way that gives you something to go away and work with as well. So just lying down, again, quiet mind as much as you can. And just seeing if you can kind of drift off in that little twilight zone, like between wake and asleep. And allowing that information just to settle in for you so you can just absorb it without necessarily thinking too much about it at the moment. Just quieten down, letting go as much as you can. If letting go is good for you, some people need to hold on to. But I think most of us can really be supported by just the letting go. And then just start maybe moving your fingers, toes, hands. And move your body coming onto lying onto your side. And come up to seated. Or stay lying down if you want, that's cool too. Early in the morning for you. And namaste, thank you for joining me. Oh, that was quite a lot of information, wasn't it?
It was good.
Yep. Can you say anything more?
Yeah, I'd never understood that relationship, that there were even those two different parts of the foot.
Yeah.
The heel foot and the ankle foot, and that spiraling motion for the push off makes a lot of sense when as you're doing it, you're like, oh right, but I've never really understood that motion before.
Yeah.
And the spiral for pushing off to move forward feels right, makes a lot of sense. But I wondered if there's a similar motion for stepping back, or how that works for stepping back.
I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's the reverse of that.
Uh-huh.
Kind of makes sense of it, but is it? I don't know. Let me have a look. Let me have a feel. No, it's probably the same. It's probably a toe heel, isn't it? Is that right?
Yeah.
The ankle foot rather than the heel foot coming
So
down.
whether it reverses.
Yeah.
I was just trying to play with that a little bit, and I'll probably play with it a bit more, you know, and try and work out what that motion is through the foot for stepping back.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure, but I think the key thing really is to look at how well distributed the forces are.
Sure.
I kind of feel it's like the reverse order.
Yeah, but just like you say, the awareness of it is great, and sensing it.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome. How was that, Mary?
Lovely, lovely. I have trouble with, well, I thought it was the right foot, but I'm beginning to think now that actually it's into the left foot too. It's interesting that I place a lot more weight in the left foot than I do the right foot. And it's how to balance those two distributions of weight. And that the right foot seems to, well, it doesn't set itself on the floor in a way that I think is right for aligning both feet in the same way, and I have to adjust that either through knee or through hip to kind of just bring the heel and toes to the same kind of alignment on the floor. Then I can get the balance right. But if I just kind of do it without a thought process, the foot goes down, slam, I'm still the other one. So I'm very aware that there's something going on that needs to be balanced, but this has given me some more things, as Sally was saying, to play with about how I place that foot in the conscious bit when I'm actually physically working, and then hoping that I can take some of it through to the unconscious walking, stomping around. So, but yeah, I felt quite a lot of change actually from where the pain originated up at the top as I was working with that, just that little bit of walking there. So fascinated.
Right. You know, I think it could probably take years to change. And I think that's just one of those things. It's not just because we've had those patterns going on for such a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was told, I was doing work with another teacher, and he said, I don't trust my feet. So I had to trust my toes to take my weight. Yes. And until I can trust them, yes, I'm always going to be seeking out the ground and taking extra caution to put it firmly on the ground before I trust myself, especially to come up on two toes. Yes. To trust my toes to take my weight and not let me fall over.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have fallen over before, which is why I don't trust them.
So maybe you can start trusting them when you can feel that nice even weight distribution, so that it technically should give you some sort of stability, some sort of sense of groundedness, and it will give you more versatility and more possibilities rather than just a pattern that reinforces a pattern, really.
Yeah.
And you've got all these things about the feet, you know, walking with two left feet is a phrase. Yeah. Or what's it? You put your foot in your mouth.
Yeah.
What are the other phrases? Can you remember any other foot phrases? My favourite one is, but I don't want to say that until you give some other words. Can you remember? You know, everyone's got a brain freeze. Okay, my favourite is foot loose and fancy free. So have your feet foot loose, fancy free, but it doesn't mean loose collapsing. There's certainly, and it applies to everything that we do. It needs a little bit of stability and a bit of ease, and the combination of those depending on what you're doing and whether you're creating too much force. But yeah, foot loose and fancy free. I was going to do the feet to the hips, as I told you. And as I was going through the feet, I couldn't really do that in 2 hours. It's just too much to do. And next week, we're going to do more shoulder girdles. And that's going to be the last one pre-festive season. And there was also some work that I was going to do around boundaries related to our arms and our hands that I was going to do this week, but I'm actually going to do next week because it fits better. Because I can do this, I can just make it up like I want to. It's good.
Just too many ideas.
I know.
It all sounds good though.
Yeah. So, any other comments or sharings? There's been some chat comments. Thanks, Bien. It's been good.
Yeah, I would like to share.
Benjamin.
Yes, after we laid down and okay, came to the Qigong exercise, I realized, okay, I stand more inside.
Yeah.
And after the first exercise and go back to my feet, I had this, my feet turned stable on the outside. My hips went opened. It was very, very good sensation, and yes, amazing. This was an amazing moment because okay, the turn automatically on the outside feels good. But and on the journey, especially to discover discovering with the breath all the bones, there were a lot of situations when I had kind of panic. One time was really fast, so I need to slow myself down again. And for me, it's like I think about it's like to allow you also to let me move from the inside, and I think this is challenging a bit. So give you the allowance to move to all my bones, because I notice when I work with other people, okay, I can feel them, they can feel me. If I imagine just to touch them, they feel the touch, and so on. And it's interesting, it's good. And I could follow all the time. Maybe last half hour was still full, or okay, was enough.
Yeah, I saw that, and I got that too. So it was a big learning for me as well. I think there's quite a lot. Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you for saying that. And you know, the most important thing, really, I mean, there's lots of most important things. It's not what it looks like from the outside. It's all from the inside out. That's when you can really start to change things, because as we looked at how different we are physically in terms of everything, and emotionally how different we are. So doing from the inside out is definitely, I think, has different possibilities, that's for sure. Yeah. So onwards and upwards, footloose and fancy free. Anybody else want to say anything? Cool. So enjoy walking, enjoy your feet, keep them nice and stable. It will help ground you. Being grounded, coming to your calcaneus, contact in the floor. Just really important for us humans to be grounded in this world. And then we can space out from a grounded place. But if you space out from an ungrounded place, it's not very helpful, I don't think.
Okay.
A grounded high is better than just a high. Maybe, I don't know. Depends what kind of high you want.
On that note, I'm going to go and get some second breakfast.
Sorry. Okay. Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks for coming. See you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. See you.